Cashback up to 20% on Green Friday in the Hello section.
The armed forces of Ukraine are doing the impossible. Pokrovsk is holding the line of fire. Paratroopers are breaking the Russian offensive, and the enemy is stuck in their own assaults. The city is fighting block by block, but there are no encirclements, only Ukrainian control. Meanwhile, Russia is drowning in its own fakes. Kostiantynivka, which they claim to have already taken, turns out to be under the Ukrainian flag. Ukrainian armed forces generals are speaking from the scene. The truth echoes louder than propaganda. A full breakdown of the frontline situation, debunking of fakes, and new footage of Ukrainian strikes coming up in just a moment. Hello, this is Solomia Dolek with you, and this is Ukraine. Today and the latest events. Pokrovsk is holding on. The paratroopers are not just holding the line, they are disrupting the enemy's plans. There are fierce firefights in Pokrovsk, but Ukrainian forces are confidently maintaining their defense. Brigadier General Yevhen Lasichuk, commander of the 7th Rapid Response Corps of the Air Assault Forces, spoke about the situation on the hottest section of the front. He delivered words that are important for everyone to hear. There is no encirclement, the situation is under control, and the enemy pays for every meter with blood and equipment.
Our troops are not encircled. Air assault brigades are holding positions that are critical for organizing a coordinated maneuver in case the situation worsens.
Despite this intense pressure, our forces are not giving up the city. There is street fighting in Pokrovsk itself, but the defensive line is holding. The general emphasizes that the fighting is literally happening block by block. In the
city, there are ongoing firefights. The notional line of separation runs along the railway and divides the city into south and north.
Ukrainian units are clearly controlling the situation and are not allowing the enemy to capture critical positions. The enemy is trying to infiltrate, but our forces catch every group.
The adversary, taking advantage of the weather conditions, is attempting to infiltrate the southern part of the city. We are stopping attempts by small enemy groups to advance to the south.
Our forces are working hard, destroying the groups that try to break through. They prevent infiltration and maintain control over key locations. Mirnohrad is another point of attack, and here too the enemy is having no luck. The Russians are trying to cut off logistics, but Ukrainian paratroopers respond with fire and maneuver.
The enemy is trying to cut off logistics between Pokrovsk and Mirnohrad and enter the city. We are blocking these attempts, destroying equipment and personnel.
Our warriors, they are holding on, holding the city and holding the line. Despite the massive concentration of Russian forces, the Pokrovsk direction is holding thanks to the professionalism and resilience of Ukrainian paratroopers. The enemy is throwing everything it has, but the result is always the same: losses, disrupted plans, and zero strategic success. Ukraine continues to fight. After the news from Pokrovsk, we move on to another direction where Russian propaganda once again tried to paint itself a victory. But as always, Russian military boasted that they were supposedly already conducting a sweep of Kostiantynivka in the Donetsk region. Propaganda reports that city centers have been taken, but there's one detail: Ukrainian soldiers are in the city. The commander of the 19th Army Corps, Brigadier General Alexander Bakulin, is directly in Kostiantynivka and speaks about what he sees with his own eyes.
Friends, the commanders of the group of troops, Putin's generals, have reported to their boss that they are already clearing the center of Kostiantynivka. Well, anyone who has been to Kostiantynivka understands where I am right now. So that's the situation. Either I personally repelled the advance of the enemy's superior forces, or his generals are blatantly lying to him. No one is clearing the center of Kostiantynivka. Yes, it's destroyed, yes, there's war, but it's ours.
The Russian Federation is trying to present the ruins as cleared neighborhoods, but the truth is different. In other words, the Russians are not only not entering the center, they don't even understand where exactly they are. That's where the fairy tales they tell Putin come from. While Russia draws up maps of captured cities for itself, Ukrainian soldiers are holding the line in places where, according to Russian propaganda, they supposedly no longer exist. Kostiantynivka and the center are under the control of the Ukrainian armed forces. And every such frontline fake only proves once again the truth is on our side while the enemy has only lies, fear, and losses. After debunking Russian fakes about Kostiantynivka, let's move on. Because while the Russians try to pass off their dreams as reality in Donbass, reality is catching up with them in their own rear. And that reality is Ukrainian deep strikes. New models are taking to the skies, and each one is a separate story of fear for the enemy. The names are telling: Flamingo, Polyanitsia, Hrim, Bandera-Boy. Now that security is burning in pillars of flame, thank you. The Kremlin doesn't know how to respond. And Russian air defense is overloaded, full of holes and in a panic. And Ukrainian developers say simply, this is not all yet. This is only the beginning. This isn't a catastrophe that's on the way. This is a catastrophe that has already hit Russia. All of this is covered further in the video.
Distances of hundreds or even thousands of kilometers are no obstacle for Ukrainian weapons. Russian oil refineries. Well, that's clear. A refinery? That's obvious even without saying it. Key facilities of the military-industrial complex and the Russian war machine. It's a complete nightmare. It's getting worse. And recently, in response to attacks on Ukraine's critical infrastructure, Russian critical infrastructure has also come under the sights of the Ukrainian armed forces. When the Kremlin threatens blackouts for Ukrainians, Russians should also prepare for a cold and difficult winter.
If they threaten a blackout, for example, in the capital of Ukraine, the Kremlin should know that there will be a blackout in the capital of Russia as well.
For a long time, Western allies restricted Ukraine's ability to strike deep into Russian territory, as a result of which Ukraine has built up its own long-range arsenal. According to the head of Ukrainian intelligence, Kirill Budanov, today 99% of strikes on Russian oil refineries are carried out with Ukrainian weapons.
At the time when all this began, when they said that with one hand tied, I tend to agree with your opinion that this is an accurate reflection of what was happening then. But now we have our own production, though we want more, we always want more. But in Ukraine, it was precisely our domestic struggle that allowed us to once again use our strengths and resources as we should, as we can see from this.
We can see this. The Kremlin understands only the language of force. The best argument in any negotiations with Moscow is a strong Ukrainian army and defense industry. In particular, the domestic production of long-range drones and missiles with which Ukraine regularly strikes targets in Russia located 1,000 or more kilometers from the front line.
In order to somehow put this war into a deadlock, to shift the situation, we need to learn not only to repel enemy attacks on the front line, but also to strike at their logistics and their aviation. That's why it's necessary, and I'm not even talking about the need to strike at Russia's military-industrial complex enterprises and its energy system.
This is Belgorod, basically. There's no power anywhere at all in Belgorod.
If the simplest drones to manufacture are used for strikes on Russian oil refineries, jet-powered drones like Polyanitsia, Peklo and Bars are better suited for military-industrial complex targets. Their technical specifications are not disclosed. Experts suggest that the range of these jet-powered drones is between 500 and 700 kilometers. The main advantage is their cost compared to their winged competitors.
These are two cities that are the most heavily protected by air defense systems of the Russian Federation, such as Moscow and Leningrad. They were being hit every evening. It can reach them, and I would say that I would very much like for this to happen in a systematic manner.
For dessert for the occupiers, Ukraine has the long-range missiles Long Neptune and Flamingo, with ranges of 1,000 and 3,000 kilometers respectively. The Ukrainian Pink Bird, in addition to its enormous range, impresses with a warhead weight of about, of course,
the warhead of a modern cruise missile is 450, but at most 500 kilograms. What does a one-ton warhead achieve? If it hits a target, for example, an industrial facility, 2 such missiles will completely disable it for at least a year. That is, there will be a crater about 20 meters in diameter.
Russian terrorists who shell Ukrainian cities must understand that a mirrored strike will definitely come.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
This is a triumph. Our forces have taken control over Moscow. The sky over the capital of the Russian Federation is now dominated by Ukrainian drones. A mega attack on the heart of Russia. Putin is in shock. And the Kremlin is shaking. A fiery force struck with all its might. The Ukrainian armed forces broke through the defenses. Epic footage has spread across the internet. The critical moment has come. The Russian air defense has disappeared. The horizons are exposed. Our forces are on standby. A breakthrough is being prepared. Could it be that the final blow will be delivered any day now? All this coming up in just a moment.
Pickup trucks with machine guns mounted on their roofs are stationed around the Kremlin perimeter. It's unlikely that Putin and his generals expected to see such a scene in the fourth year of the war. Last weekend, Moscow and the surrounding region came under a massive drone attack. During the night, Domodedovo and Zhukovsky airports were temporarily closed. By morning, their operations had resumed. In the Kommunarka area, explosions were heard during the attack and smoke could be seen rising above the forest. All night long, Moscow Mayor Sobyanin was posting about downed drones on his Telegram channel. Other Russian public channels also reported on the large-scale drone attack.
In the Russian Federation, they are trying to launch a massive attack on Moscow and the region. In just a few hours, 14 drones heading for the capital were destroyed. Explosions in the sky were heard in Domodedovo, Podolsk, Dubna, Ramenskoye, Kommunarka, Troitsk, and Kolomna. At Zhukovsky and Domodedovo airports, 5 flights were cancelled and 6 were rescheduled. Restrictions on departures and arrivals have been introduced. In
the Moscow region, a massive fire broke out at the Serpukhov oil depot due to a drone strike. The Russian Ministry of Defense reported that nearly 200 attack UAVs were shot down overnight.
This is not the first time that the Russians themselves have recorded more than 40 Ukrainian drones heading toward Moscow. In other words, we are testing the capabilities to actually bypass the capital's air defense system that they currently have, which is deployed directly. But we understand that all of this is, in fact, specific retaliatory strikes and probing actions. Probing indeed how to deliver a more effective combined strike.
Recently, Western media published a map of the air defense systems protecting the capital of the Russian Federation. But even through such dense defenses, Ukrainian drones managed to slip through. Because of Moscow's heavy defenses, other regions and strategic sites across all of Russia are suffering. Analysts clarify that the systems are constantly being relocated, but the majority are concentrated around Moscow, St. Petersburg, and Putin's residence in Valdai. There simply aren't enough systems to protect oil refineries and other strategic sites in the regions. This is exactly what the Ukrainian armed forces are taking advantage of. In the Moscow region, explosions were heard near the airfield where Russia's strategic aviation is based. The Shaikovka Strategic Aviation Air Base and the Kaluga airfield in Kaluga region were also under attack. This is not the first massive drone attack on Moscow and other regions. Even though the Russian Ministry of Defense always underreports the number of drones, almost 200 is a significant number and it will only continue to grow.
Maya is very serious and such an anti-propaganda effect directly for the Kremlin, which, let me remind you, claimed that one of the reasons for launching the so-called special military operation was to ensure security guarantees for the Russian Federation itself, as Putin and his circle explained. But we see that the war is coming directly to Moscow, and Muscovites themselves see this, and not only Muscovites. We see that the geography of Ukraine's drone attacks is indeed expanding still.
Before the start of the so-called special military operation, drones weren't terrorizing ordinary Russians, let alone Muscovites. Now, air raid sirens all night long are becoming a routine thing for Moscow. And perhaps now Russians will start having questions and complaints for the master of the Kremlin.
And how do you assess the resilience and strength of our defenders? Share your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button below the video and stay updated on the main news together with me. There's more to come. See you in the next segment.